All right, now we are going to get into actually some real research and then some dancing, which should be pretty fun. And I might, when we have to have our cameras on, move my space a little bit. So next up, we have Calvin Lodge. I am so excited for this presentation. Calvin, thanks so much for joining us. Calvin is one of my previous students at Naropa when I teach in the Clinical Mental Health Counseling Master's Program within the Buddhist Informed Contemplative cohort. Calvin is also an ordained minister of movement, as well as an author, runs a private practice, wellness practitioner, kind of focusing on Reiki, as well as many other wellness practices. And there's a lot that I'm missing. Feel free to add if you want, but I will just add this. So, Calvin did his thesis presentation on community dance and its benefits in the context of interpersonal adversity, interpersonal trauma. And I just thought this was brilliant. Um, in eating disorders, especially in binge eating disorder, we often see interpersonal relating and interpersonal adversity becoming problematic. We see interpersonal deficits, and I kind of have touched on a lot of that research, in my own and throughout we've seen throughout this summit. Um, and it just really felt to me like this is an intervention that can really touch on that in a unique way. And it also addresses a challenge of movement that we often see in eating disorders. How to introduce movement without maybe kind of activating these kind of exercise addiction tendencies or kind of negative emotions around movement. So I kind of begged and asked Calvin if he would come present this here, and I'm really grateful, really excited to have you here. Thank you.
Thanks, Brenna. Yeah, it's really great to be here. And yeah, there's maybe a lot more we could say, but I think let's just get into it. I think in the beginning, since this is all about interpersonality, it would be great to go around and have everyone say their name and where they're at right now and maybe what they're bringing in. We do a popcorn style. You can say it and call on the next person.
Beautiful. I'm happy to start. I'm Brenna. What I'm doing here, I direct Nourished. I'm just really excited to have everyone be in this space. And what was the intention? Was that the last part?
Just what you're bringing in. Yeah.
Oh, what I'm bringing in. I'm bringing in excitement.
Mhm. Excellent.
Yeah.
And you can call on someone to go next.
Popcorn Callie. Is Callie on? Okay, we'll go Popcorn Heather. Oh,
Hi.
Paul's on. Popcorn Callisti.
Hello. Happy to be here, and I love ecstatic dance. We predominantly wanted to hear about the ayahuasca and just the psychedelic realm of things. And yeah, I think I'm into health and wellness and fitness and tech, and so I just was curious what you guys are up to.
Beautiful. You can popcorn someone else.
Oh, okay. Let's go for Heather.
Hi, Heather Campbell, coming in from Western Massachusetts in the Berkshires. I'll be speaking last, so I hope some of you stick around. And what I'm bringing is just a mind that's blown at the moment. Um, I'm amazed, I'm in awe, I'm excited, I've got questions, and I think moving would be a really good idea. And I will popcorn Philippe.
Do we have Felipe on?
Or Andrew.
Oh, hey. Um, I guess I didn't hear so we're supposed to talking about who we are and
Yeah, just an introduction and what you're bringing to the
what I'm
space.
bringing. So yeah, my name's Andy. Yeah, I'm a psychiatrist and I'm a researcher.
Sorry, I'm muted. Fantastic. Um, Excellent. I think we have, I know my mom is jumping back on. And then we're streaming this onto our Facebook page.
Okay, awesome.
But I'm
So
not able to.
we'll just get going on community dance and its modality as a healing intervention. All right, so dance is the hidden language of the soul of the body. This is a quote I really love because it speaks to dance as its own form of like expression and communication between people. So getting into my view of emotions, and this is something that we can sometimes brush over in the realm of therapy, but like what are emotions and how do they actually like function? And at a core level, emotions are the movement of energy. So when we think about what happiness is, what sadness is, like these things are just energy moving through us. And what we think of as feelings are our interpretations of those, of the sensory phenomena. And we give it a value judgment. We say this is positive or negative or good or bad. So feelings are our perception of the energy. And this is kind of rooted in Tibetan or Vajrayana Buddhist practice. And then when we think about trauma and what trauma is, or the symptoms of trauma, these are constrictions of the emotional energy that remain stuck in our system. And so this is kind of, aligned with Chinese medicine theory that states illness or disease comes from blockages within our energetic system. And so this is something that, this is, present in a lot of cultures and ideologies, mainly in Eastern cultures. So when we think of, classic psychology practices, or Buddhist or yogic meditations, or art therapy, or dance and movement therapy, we are actually like helping clients to navigate and release these energetic blockages within their system, whether it's talking or through movement. Either way is pretty much the same or similar functionality. So just defining trauma real quick. Trauma is the memory of the nervous system that is remembering and responding to past situations in order to increase our chances of survival. Now, this is the nervous system remembers things. This is something the nervous system does and is a natural function. And so in chronic traumatic stress, the nervous system's inability to relax or realize when the danger has passed is what causes people this constant traumatic stress. And when we think about trauma, right, the majority of trauma is relational. There are other traumas that can be caused by, being in an earthquake or having to run from a forest fire, but these are much less common, and that everybody in our society has some level of trauma, right? And so this trauma generally comes from our caretakers or people we know, or just like our interactions throughout life that tell us that we're not safe within our relationships. And so this interferes with our ability to feel safe and feel held within our relationships and within our own bodies. And there's pretty much no one who isn't affected by this. And so generally, in order to cope with these sensations of trauma responses, most people, particularly in our Western culture, sever their connection to their mind and body and heart, which are all interconnected in this one being. So when we think about therapy, and therapy happens when we are held, witnessed, and accepted in our creative expression. And creative expression can be anything from narrative storytelling to creating visual arts to authentic movement, emotional expression, and other things like that. So like when we are sitting in the therapy room, you know, and saying like a story of what happened to us as a child, you know, this could be creative expression, could be just as and creativity being kind of loosely defined here, you know, breaking down, sobbing, it could also be considered an emotional expression. But the valuable part of that is being held and witnessed and accepted by another person. And this, is what I consider to be the primary modality or function of therapy and healing. And I love this definition of express. So, you know, there's expressing like to convey a thought or feeling in words, or to squeeze out like liquid or air, you know. And I think in certain situations, when you're in the right situation, being able to, you know, having the opportunity to squeeze out your emotions in the presence of another. Are there any thoughts or comments or questions so far?
No questions, but doing good. I'm on board with you.
Excellent. Okay. So what is freeform dance? We're talking about community freeform dance as a healing modality. You know, and this includes authentic movement, right? An authentic movement is just moving one's body or allowing one's body to move outside of the conceptual or logical thought processes. Like you are just really tapping into like what movement is authentic for you in this moment. And this is kind of along the lines of the expression and allowing emotions to express themselves through you. And there's movement, and then there's dance, right? And I think of a crucial part of dance is bringing some sort of intentionality into it. And intentionality is just bringing your conscious awareness to whatever you may be doing. And bringing your conscious awareness into dance does not negate like spontaneity or other things like that. Yeah, an expression, that squeezing out of emotions through a creative act, such as dance. Okay. So in a freeform community dance practice, you know, we're intentionally choosing to creatively express our inner world in and to a group of people. Okay, and this opens up the opportunity to be witnessed and held in our creative and emotional expression. And then with acceptance from those who are witnessing, we can retrain our nervous systems to relax and rewrite old patterns created by trauma. So there's a lot of times we're, in a social situation and we are unable to relax because of the scripts that have been written in our nervous system since we were a young child. And dance helps us to rewrite that. Another crucial element of dance is this act of embodiment and bringing your awareness to include the felt sense of the body, right? Such as sensory, emotional, and physical experiences. Which, like I said earlier, like we're so often cut off from our own embodiment because the sensations or the feelings that we're feeling in there are overwhelming or unpleasant in some way. or we're not in a space that's safe enough to be able to feel these things. So the process of therapy helps individuals to return to a state of embodiment where safety, relaxation of the nervous system can be found in the body. So we're going to take a little bit and just do a short embodiment practice. Okay, so everything in this presentation is an invitation. So do what you feel is best for you. If you want to step out of this practice, you're more than welcome to. But I invite you to just find your feet on the ground or your seat, wherever it may be, in a chair, whatever you may be doing, and just taking some deep breaths. Okay, so however you breathe, just breathing normally, but just bringing your awareness to your breath. And we're just going to stay here for a few moments, just being with the breath. And then bring your awareness to your heart, or your heart space in the center of your chest. Right now, as you notice your lungs inhale and expand and exhale and contract, you're going to imagine that your heart is doing that same thing. So every time you inhale, your heart expands, and every time you exhale, your heart contracts. Now, if you feel comfortable doing this, you bring your conscious awareness, which so often exists in our heads, and drop it down into your heart space. Picture it moving down into your heart space and occupying this space as it expands and as it contracts. Now expand this awareness to stretch out through your arms, down through your legs, wiggle your toes and fingers perhaps, and up through your head, occupying your whole body. Just paying attention to any sensations or feelings or anything that may be arising as you drop into this body practice. Now taking time to, return at your leisure to the space between us. Now this practice comes from heart math and working on coherence, heart and head coherence, that connects our brains to our body in a more regulated and coherent way. So this is a quote I love that says, "I believe that dance is the oldest, noblest, and most cogent of the arts. I believe that dance has the power to heal mentally and physically. And I believe that true education in the art of dance is education in the whole person." And this is kind of what this whole PowerPoint is alluding to is that dance is alone its own healing modality. And in the therapy room, we can sit there and talk to someone, and what we're doing in that is also like learning and educating ourselves about ourselves. But in dance, we're doing something similar in a totally different way. So this wouldn't be complete without acknowledging the indigenous roots of healing and or indigenous roots of dance as a healing practice. And through globally, through indigenous cultures everywhere, that community dance is a big part of the majority of these cultures. And there's dance for celebration, there's dances for grief, there's dances for healing and all sorts of things. And this is like not isolated to any like one continent or culture. This is like present everywhere. And also tying into like the how healing practices have been are generally communal practices in these cultures. And it only isn't up till like recently where we have moved to more individualized practices, like sitting one-on-one in a therapy room. So these dances, they're multi-purposes, they're multifunctional, they have many different elements that actually bring healing and connectedness to the individuals, right? And so some of the main modalities that they do is that they foster community and social bonds. They can provide an outlet for an embodied expression of trauma. Like whatever trauma you have experienced on the dance floor, you are able to express it in a way that is in and of itself healing, in a way that's like a squeezing out of the trauma. You're fostering embodiment and engaging in the mind-body connection. And also connecting to tradition and ancestry. And just connecting to something greater than yourself in a lot of aspects is one of the primary functions of healing as well. Dance can also induce trance-like states. So this kind of ties into all of the psychedelic talk we've been talking about. I used to run the Naropa Alliance for Psychedelic Studies, and we would go around and introduce ourselves and say your favorite psychedelic of the moment. And frequently dance was brought up as one of the favorite psychedelics of the moment, because it can help you to drop into these hypnagogic or trance-like states. Like the same reason therapy originally was hypnotherapy. Before we moved into talk therapy, it was like the original, and some people still claim to be some of the most beneficial forms of therapy is hypnotherapy. And it's been shown that like repetitive movements, repetitive beats, like drumming or, bass music can allow individuals to easily access trance-like states. And these states have altered brainwave frequencies and mystical experiences similar to those induced in psychedelic medicine work, which in my personal opinion, I think that the mystical states that psychedelic work induces is, in addition to the neuroplasticity, is one of the most beneficial parts of psychedelic medicine work. So the community aspect of dance, though, is what I consider to be the primary source of healing. Similar to a Sangha and Buddhist practice, you think about a group of meditators who are all sitting in a room together because of our collective interbeing. Our nervous systems are interconnected. When you're sitting across from someone in a therapy office, and someone is going through an intense emotional experience, the most beneficial thing as a clinician is to be able to maintain your own nervous system regulation, to kind of lend your nervous system to that client. Now that happens on a bigger scale when we practice in community settings. We have not just one, but multiple nervous systems that are there holding us in our experience. And so this kind of creates a collective safety that allows people to more readily and easily access these extreme states or other emotional experiences that they may not have the safety to experience in other places. I'm thinking that like one of the, in certain dances, I see people going through a, intense experience, and I also see like the people around them being aware of that and also holding space in a way that is very sweet. So community dance also provides a context for awareness. Like when you are dancing, you can see like what someone else is doing, something that you might not like, or someone might interact with you in a certain way that is, you like or don't like, or you do something that then you're like, why did I do that? That was preposterous. And so when we are alone and isolated, and it's hard to have that context for awareness. We can get wrapped up in our own bubbles and be like running all of these stories, and which are, true or not true. And most of the time the stories that we tell ourselves are not true. So one of the things is that dance can be activating, just in general. I mean, community dance in general can trigger intense emotional experiences. Community dance can also activate a variety of triggers and traumas around our relationships and interpersonal dynamics. Does this person like me? Do they want to dance with me? Are they dancing with me? Am I dancing with this person because I think I have to dance with this person? Are they having a good time? They're probably not having a good time. There's so many scripts that can be running in our heads, and just like moving our bodies in general can be just a challenging because of the emotions that live there, right? Like we have trauma-informed yoga that we move only in specific ways because moving in other ways can be incredibly activating. So within that, within the community dance space, there's like a strong need for safety. And this is, I think dance is kind of like a psychedelic experience. And within the psychedelic experience, there's a strong need for ceremony. Like the ceremony is one of the most crucial parts, in my opinion, of the psychedelic experience, right? There needs to be some form of containment, of a holding and expectations and values that allow people to relax into their own experience. So some of the things that we need are strong values and culture codes, right? Things like acceptance, like people are going to be dancing and moving in the way that they want to dance and move. And as long as they're not hurting anyone or interfering with anyone else's space, that like we accept that. There's a strong value on consent, as in like we're not touching anyone who does not give us like explicit permission for physical contact, or we're not getting up in anyone's business without being attuned to what their needs are. And a culture of feedback. When someone does something that you don't like, giving them the feedback promptly so that they can be aware of what they're doing and mend their behavior. It's important to have qualified and competent facilitators, just like shamans or practitioners in the psychedelic space. It's like important to have people who are capable of holding the space. and yeah, just bring it back to the container or some sort of containment that, we have an opening and a closing where we open the space and make the expectation, give the expectations, and that like what we're engaging in is an actual practice, and then closing out that practice at the end, so we can know that we're no longer in that space, and we can move out into the world, with ease. So there's the 3 rules of community dance. Okay, and the first rule is take care of yourself. Okay, because you're there, because the second rule is take care of others, and it's very important that you don't switch the two. If you go into a community dance space and you're taking care of others and self-sacrificing, you're gonna have a bad time. And so yeah, just doing what feels right for you, doing what not doing or engaging in anything that like doesn't feel congruent to what's going on for you. And also moving with what is. Okay, there's so and I like this framing of moving with what is as opposed to moving through. So often in the psychology realm and the psychedelic realm, we talk about like the only way out is through. And in this moving through narrative, there's really a like a rejection of our personal experience, that we're trying to get past something. We're trying to escape something. Okay. And so when we move with what is, we're moving in a way that like we are moving in acceptance of what is. Okay. And so dance can also give you glimpses of liberation and freedom in the similar way that psychedelics can. You can go into a dance space and you can experience what it is to be free from judgment and concept, because you're dropping into a emotional or like a spiritual state where spirit is moving through you. Okay, so let's dance. So here we are. We're going to take a few moments and we are just going to dance. You can leave your cameras off for this one. And I'm going to play some music. And, I invite you to just stand up or stay seated and just move in the way that your body wants to move. Okay. And I will play some music. Are there any questions before we start? No?
Nope.
All right, then let's dance. All right. So, if anyone has any insights or reflections on how that was for you to dance, now's a time you can share.
I'm happy to go first. Oh, Alex says relaxing. Um, yeah, I thought so too. You know, it's interesting because I've been able to kind of engage in this presentation with you before, but we started in a full community experience, and I noticed that it's a very different experience dancing when it is like just me on my deck. Yeah, it's really lovely.
Nice. Yeah, that is yeah, something about this. It is totally different dancing in a group of people who are dancing,
Mhm.
which is kind of the core concept here. Yeah.
It's nice though, and I think it is, I was kind of just thinking as I was dancing, like, gosh, this is really nice. Why don't I do this more? So I do think that there is something about still a container being held. Heather, yeah.
Yeah, I actually recently was just at the airport with a flight that was going to be delayed, then it was canceled, then it was delayed again. And I found myself at midnight by myself in an area dancing.
Hmm.
Um, and I had the music in my ears, and there was an energy there, even though I was alone.
Mhm.
Being completely alone without the music really enveloping me was a different experience. I had to, when you invited us to get up, I'm not on video. Am I really gonna get up? Yeah, I'm really gonna get up. Um, Very different experiences in terms of the enveloping energy.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm seeing someone in the Facebook. I've got a few questions, but only after all have had an opportunity to reflect, Andy says. I see someone else in the Facebook group saying, um, hang on, let you in. Noticing myself wanting to judge my movements versus turning my brain off and pretending no one was there.
Mhm.
Um, let's see, and then another person just says, lovely, beautiful. Andy, go ahead.
Yeah, so I thought that was fantastic. I mean, everything I learned there, and I don't know, everything that I felt like kind of really like hit, about the importance of movement, um, in our therapeutic space. And just so you know, I voted to give funding to start up our trauma sensitive yoga program here at the university, which I think has been a fantastic addition. And I think, speaking of that, like, right, so you mentioned how in trauma sensitive yoga, right, like you do, it is specific movements. And also I like, even though I don't know much about like, dance, I guess when I think about like, a lot of like perhaps like, I guess my my the sense in my head of like a lot of ancestral and traditional dances is that like a lot of them are like rather choreographed. And you made a really like interest, and I think you made a really important point about like when it comes to psychedelics, like ritual is so important, and kind of like doing kind of like certain things, and things actually being kind of like protocolized and standard, as if you're kind of like part of something kind of bigger than yourself, and that things are controlled and contained. And so I hope you could just comment on kind of like what is the difference between and the benefits and risks and of kind of engaging in something more choreographed, and kind of almost learning something, right? And versus kind of a more free form thing that still is within kind of contained limits.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think there's benefits to both. So, one of the things when we think about yoga, or like, it could be trauma informed or otherwise, you're generally going to like a yoga class. It's like 60 minutes and someone runs you through a routine. And this can be very beneficial. It can open up energy pathways. It can, access, like the reasons for trauma informed. It can open up various emotions that we may or may not be ready for. But then, when we think about the origins of yoga, that like these movements express themselves through someone originally. And right now we have the written down, kind of like, you're reading a book and you're like, this is downward dog, and we know what downward dog is. But at one point, someone just did it. That this movement moved through someone naturally, because that's what was needing to be expressed in that moment. Or so there is, for people who are like out of touch with their own bodies and energetic systems, is that having a set structure or routine that you do to activate a specific feeling or sensation can be really crucial. But then also the freeform aspect of dropping into your own experience. And I think this is where like the trance-like states come in, is that like, I've heard it, someone's been saying it's like catching a ghost is a term in the dance world, where you're dancing, you start dancing just like you're dancing and moving around, and then eventually you find that you're not the one who's dancing. It's kind of like a classic, what we would consider an ego death experience in the psychedelic world, is that you drop out of your thinking mind, you drop out of your ego, but you are still, so you're not thinking at all, really, or you're not aware of your thoughts, but your body is still moving. And then what is it that's moving you is a whole nother presentation.
I think too, just to piggyback off of that, I was actually thinking about this for a little bit while I was dancing. You, like Andy you named the similarity to trauma-informed yoga. And I practice yoga. I'm a huge, supporter of yoga. But I think there are some aspects of this type of dance that are unique. And one is, especially with clients, when I suggest yoga, often the biggest challenge is like, well, I'm not doing it right, or I don't know how to do it, or, many folks in larger bodies might have limitations around how deep they can get into a pose and things like that. And this really, that thinking of I'm not doing it right, I think is so central to, certainly eating disorders, but I think many mental, anxiety, I would imagine kind of many mental health issues. And this like takes that off the board, like there is no, there is no set of rules there or structure there, which is really unique.
Right. And I help facilitate an ecstatic dance on Wednesday nights. And when we open it, one of the main things we say, it's like, who's never ecstatic danced before? And then it's like, well, the good news is there's almost no way to do it wrong. And you could go in and you could go to the back of the room or the middle of the room, wherever you want. And you could just lay down for the whole 90 minutes,
Yeah.
You don't actually have to dance at all in the traditional, what we would consider dancing. So it's really, it is very open and inviting in that way.
Beautiful.
I have one more question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Do we have time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So yeah, one thing I was hoping is like a question of like, how do we kind of like hold space for like, right, like kind of making sure that things are non-judgmental, and right, it seems like a lot of this is like, right, like you mentioned like ego death, and like I think when things get very ecstatic, but like also like not taking oneself too seriously, and like kind of like the very kind of hilarious and real stereotypes in Western culture, in that white people, especially white men, just like aren't great dancers. And I can't, and like I have to say that like as awesome and important that I thought your talk was, like, yeah, I think there was something that made me giggle a little bit about a white dude talking about ecstatic dance. And like, how can we put those things all together?
Mhm.
And I think that kind of what you're speaking to is totally valid, and that probably white men could potentially be one of the most disembodied groups of people, one of the people who are so disconnected from their own embodied experience that they have a hard time dancing. Think about your hips. How many men in particular are in touch with their hips? That's um that's tricky business. And then trying to move your hips in ways, and it's like you're like, oh wait, this feels like, is this like sexy? Am I moving my is this okay for me to be moving like this? Is someone going to judge me for it?
Mhm.
And I think that's part of why I'm so passionate about it, is because there was so much actually for me to work through personally in the realm of dance. Is that getting in touch with my own body, getting in touch with like relationships, and just like really powerful things. Like, can I actually, like, it's like almost like a practice in intimacy as well, dancing with another person. Can I allow someone to come close to me, and then when they leave, can I allow them to go? Can I let them go? It's kind of like a practice in learning to love and to let go, um, and to be in contact with someone in a non-sexual way that might feel very intimate, um, but it's not something that you're like gonna pursue afterwards, leaving it on the dance floor and all that. Yeah, so there's a lot there for sure.
One other thing that I'll name, just riffing, this is also something that I noticed actually. As I've kind of shared, I study Hawaiian shamanism and Hawaiian culture, and I noticed at one point I very kind of instinctively just started to go through more like hula motions. Um, and I was just thinking on Andy's comment, white people in general, and I think in the US, we tend to be very disconnected with our heritage and our culture. We don't have these like clear cut, I'm from this tribe or this culture, and this is the dance that is a part of my culture and these things. I don't know that I have anything particular to like offer on that, but I just think it kind of occurred to me as interesting that like we maybe don't have something to fall back on, even, of like, oh, this is what my culture does. Or I mean, ring around the rosy, that's like the first thing that comes to me as a white person, um, which is not great. Um, there's something else I was going to say in there, but I forgot it. So maybe I'll just kind of, and the other thing is, Andy, as you said, like it kind of made me giggle. I mean, I've kind of shared like, we have a pretty good, I'd say maybe large subjectively ecstatic dance community here in Boulder. I know several people that are, part of this community, and I've always thought like, oh, I wish I could put on an invisibility cloak and go and like see it but not be a part of it. But I think there is an invitingness energy to it. And I think I see that in psychedelics as well, that it is something that for at least a subset of people are really curious about. Um, yeah, it's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I'll say that there's a lot of people who feel that way, like, oh, I'd go to ecstatic dance where it's like invisible, and it's kind of like life in a way that like no one's really paying attention to you.
Mhm.
You can go and dance and and most people are more concerned with hoping they're not the ones being judged than the ones doing the judging.
Mhm.
Um, cool. I'm gonna continue for a couple more slides.
Beautiful.
So I threw in dancing for eating disorders for Brenna, and the barrier for dance is incredibly low. It's like a low cost generally, and you can go in, you can lay down on the ground, you can move in the way that no one's telling you how to do anything. Dance helps individuals to feel more comfortable moving in their body, which can be a big part of eating disorders, is being comfortable in your own body. And community dance can heal relational and attachment traumas, which, if I were willing to bet, the root cause of the majority of eating disorders are probably due to relational and attachment traumas. And there's often this need for control in a world that feels unsafe or unaccepting, and in a dance space that can provide a place of acceptance where control is not needed. You can break down, you can sob on the ground, you can scream and shake and do whatever, and you're still held in this safe container. And here's why I think dance will change the world. So dance fosters connection, togetherness, and acceptance in this time of individualism. And community dance is capable of healing communities and the individuals within those communities. And also can help provide people with education on consent and respecting boundaries, which is also super important these days. So, in a hurting, violent, judgmental, isolated, and constricted world, community dance gives us a place to heal, relax our nervous systems, connect, find acceptance, and move with what is. And that's just what I think. I'm passionate about psychedelics as well, and I think psychedelics will have a huge impact on our society as a whole. But I think that dance is what will maybe bring us all together. So that's it. There's maybe a little bit of time for questions, but it looks like we're just about at time.
Yeah, we can go a few minutes. Yeah, we can go a few minutes more if anyone has any. I actually have one, and you just kind of named it at the very end. And this is, again, it's maybe going to be two questions. So one, do you see psychedelics being combined with ecstatic dance? Do you see that being like an added benefit or a risk? And then separately, we've kind of talked on this meeting a little bit about the importance of integration and kind of the integration period after psychedelic use. So I wonder if this similar question, is this something that could be beneficial in that context, do you think? Or a risk in that context?
Yeah. I think there is a high potential for combining psychedelics and ecstatic dance. I think there's a lot there that could be explored. Right now, honestly, the majority of the dance spaces in Boulder are, sober encouraged, at least, at a minimum. And sometimes people smoke a little cannabis, or sometimes people microdose a little bit of mushrooms and go dancing. But for by and large, it's like nobody's drinking and going dancing. And it's like kind of interesting to dance for people who are unfamiliar with dancing in a sober space can be intense.
Mhm.
So psychedelics can increase the intensity. And so I think it's best if that sort of thing is happening if everyone is on the same wavelength or similar. And your second part, integration.
Yeah, psychedelic integration.
Yeah. With dance or for
Yeah.
psychedelics?
Do you see ecstatic dance or community dance as something that could be used are useful in the integration period, you know, so kind of right after psychedelic use?
Yeah, so it kind of also brings that context for awareness. So like if you have an intense and when we think about psychedelic integration, it's bringing, you know, what is meaningful from your experience back into your life in a way that is like significant, right? So it can be helpful for that context of awareness. Like you had a profound psychedelics experience. Now you consider yourself to be a different person. You can go into an ecstatic dance space and show up as that person that you know is possible that you can be. And that can be a really powerful experience. And to be recognized and witnessed and seen as that new person. Which so often we don't have spaces where we can show up and be totally new.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Calvin. I'm so grateful for you. So grateful for you sharing, and just a beautiful, beautiful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's an honor.
Yeah, thank you. Excellent. Well, if any, last question, if anyone has questions for you, wants to get a hold of you, or wants to, you know, kind of get into this more, what would be the best way to do that?
Yeah, I can drop my email into the chat. Also, my website is on the Nourish
On the page. Yeah.
page. So you can contact me through my website and I'll put my email in the chat.
Beautiful. Thank you.